My name is Michelle Negrete, and I'm with Strata Design, and we're the consultants on the Route 66 Action Plan, which is intended to bring back the Mother Road. The vision of the plan is to have Route 66 as a vibrant and rich experience for all generations, with attraction building on the memories of the past, contributing to the present life of locals with an ever-evolving appeal that expands into the future. The goals of this plan are to continue the historic legacy of Route 66, support real places for real people, support opportunities that are catalytic for a diverse economy, and recognize and support the potential Route 66 has to create a thriving tourist economy. This approach is a four-part strategy, which includes infrastructure and transportation, streetscape design, business incentives, and promotion. This plan will be a Rank 2 plan, which means that it will contain policy and projects to guide future development to support Route 66. It will be a reference point for city planners and project managers, and the projects will be phased over several years. Route 66 in Albuquerque is the longest stretch of urbanized Route 66 in the country, and it's approximately 15 miles. This presents a unique opportunity for the city to invest infrastructure with rapid transit, bicycle pedestrian amenities, and a fiber optic backbone, and complementing streetscapes, which signage, wayfinding, pedestrian and bicycle amenities, historic buildings and signs, and public art improvements, with business incentives, facade improvements, development incentives, marketing for businesses, and density incentives, and promotion and branding, where Route 66 apps and websites can be developed to promote special events. Thematic signage can be incorporated to direct people to Route 66, and wayfinding implemented on interstates to direct people off I-40 and I-25 onto Route 66. The plan looks at key destinations, historic motels, museums, biopark, the fairgrounds, and our historic neighborhoods such as Nob Hill, Downtown, and Old Town as nodes and destinations for people who are traveling along the road. This process for developing the action plan has taken over a year of public meetings with representatives of neighborhoods, special interest groups, and Central Avenue businesses, and they have contributed ideas, oral histories, and feedback on the plan's goals, policies, and objectives. This plan proposes nodes and linkages to build on the existing assets of Route 66 in Albuquerque. There are 11 nodes that are proposed, and these are building upon existing areas of clusters of Route 66 infrastructure such as motels and signage, or other established districts such as Nob Hill, Downtown, and Old Town. I'm going to talk about a couple of our examples. We have on the far east of the route, we have East Gateway, and we have several existing amenities there. We have some signage, we have the rapid ride turnaround, we have the new 66 on 66 open space, and we have some public parks. And so we have this existing infrastructure, and if we add to it some things to help carry on the Route 66 legacy, such as more interpretive signage and maybe some interpretive elements in the park to describe the history and legacy of the road, some more public art perhaps on the off-ramp of the interstate, and more markers on the interstate itself, linking the public open space on the north and south side of the interstate, and finally trying to create maybe a meeting spot and a bookend marker at the old Chevron sign. Another sample node might be the International District, where we have the fairgrounds and a burgeoning international restaurant and retail environment. We also have a lot of existing Route 66 signs in this area and architecture representative of the period. These Route 66 signs could be enhanced through public art, special incentives for neon rehabilitation to create a linear sign experience for the traveler. Facade improvements can help period buildings. New marketplaces can be fostered in the area next to the Thailand International Marketplace. And this area would be a great place to see more parades, car shows, and other events. Another node can be the Cultural District, which encompasses the Atrisco to Old Town section of Route 66, and here we find the heart of Albuquerque, a cluster of all of the attractions that the city has to offer. And this is also where the three ABQ, the plans, intersect, so the 50-mile loop and the river plan. This area could be further developed to have a pedestrian bicycle bridge connecting the east and west sides of the river, having maybe some equestrian opportunities on the west side of the river in the Bosque, creating enhanced pedestrian and bicycle linkages between these cultural and historic sites, improving the Elvado Motel and putting that out for RFP to have a new use. And then another node could be at Unser and Central, which is at the western edge of Route 66 in Albuquerque. And there we have an existing cluster of motels, an RV park, a cafe, and some signage. There's opportunities here to enhance the area with an event space, capitalizing on the proximity to lodging, creating a multi-use trail that maximizes the use of the open views and vistas, maybe having public art that relates to Route 66, having more development at the Unser Crossing site, and then incorporating more Route 66 signage and activities with the Unser Children's Museum, and using some of the existing city infrastructure at the transit facility to showcase Route 66 public art and wayfinding. For more information, please contact the Mayor's Office at 505-768-3000 or email theplan@cabq.gov.
My name is Savina Garcia. I'm a senior project manager with Wilson & Company, and we're working on the 50-mile loop plan. The 50-mile loop plan is a plan to create a loop alignment that connects the city's existing infrastructure, trails, lanes, sidewalks, circling Albuquerque. The existing infrastructure in the city of Albuquerque, there's over 160 miles of trails already existing, along with 310 miles of lanes, routes, and boulevards. So this plan is really to connect that infrastructure, also to promote health and outdoor recreation in our community, and to grow tourism in the city. Some goals and the mission of the loop: of course, to promote health and recreation. We want the loop to be used by a wide range of folks with differing abilities: walkers, runners, bicyclists, all sorts of folks. We look at ideas to upgrade the safety of our existing infrastructure, utilizing trails as much as possible to keep people off of the streets, and to add as an asset to the city and destination for tourists. Our accomplishments to date: we've been working on the project for a few months now, and the main goal was to come up with an alignment. We worked with many groups, public meetings, our ad hoc committee as well, and we've been through several iterations of the alignment. And really the intent of the alignment was to get people using the infrastructure and get them closer to the fun things of the city, the bio park, the Nob Hill area, out on Tramway where there's really great views that are only, in Albuquerque. So we worked through that alignment, went probably 14 or 15 iterations. We established an ad hoc committee, worked with them, worked through the alignment, looked at wants and needs of different groups. The committee was made up of walkers, runners, different types of folks. We've also been coordinating with many different agencies. The alignment doesn't just go through the city of Albuquerque. It hits in Bernalillo County along the Amafca right-of-ways, DOT, Sandia Pueblo. And then also one of the important factors was to look at the existing conditions of the infrastructure. It's of varying age throughout the city, so we went back and looked to see how the infrastructure was and what condition it was. Our proposed loop alignment is shown here. The thick blue and red line, that's the overall alignment. It's right at 50 miles. The red sections of it are the gaps in the alignment where there currently isn't full infrastructure for those areas. The area starting up at the north side of the map, that's along Tramway Road, so we don't have trails or anything through that area. A couple other areas is Coors and Paseo, where we're looking at a possible overpass through there. And then down on the southeast end is Bridge Boulevard, where it's only just a 2-lane road, no trails exist currently. And one of the other major gaps is in the Southeast Heights area, and that is along Alvarado, that we're looking at introducing an urban trail through there. Some of the other colorful lines through there are, we wanted to make sure and connect the entire city to the loop. So those are what we're calling interloops, connector loops. So we wanted to hit all of the areas so that they would have access to the 50-mile loop. Some of our proposed improvements that we're looking at in the area are trail areas. We have heard a lot from our public meetings and from our committee in which so many folks use some of our current trails where it's not wide enough for the users. There's some conflicts that go on and maybe some etiquette things that we need to work on, but a wider trail for better separation of users. We're looking at a 14-foot wide trail with gravel or crusher fine shoulders on each side. That'll help keep the asphalt intact for longer periods, but also provide an area for folks to walk on or jog on or run on. One item that we had heard from our public meetings and from different users is that, you know, some folks don't want to necessarily be on the trail, so we are also looking at parallel facilities where there would, if it's a bicyclist, a different, you know, maybe the professional type, they want to use the roadway or the lanes. We're also identifying bike lanes along the corridor and considering those parallel facilities. The urban areas that we're looking at, especially along Alvarado, we're proposing to use, of course, the bicycle boulevard along Silver, but along Alvarado and, you know, maybe the downtown area, we're looking at an urban trail, an 8-foot wide trail that would be for pedestrians, and then the residential roadway, it's fairly wide, it has on-street parking, so we would look at using that possibly for a sharo where it's both for bicyclists and for vehicles. Some of the intersections through our existing inventory, we looked at, there's many different types of intersections throughout the city, so we're looking at proposing consistent treatments for them so that people know when they're coming up to an intersection where they should expect pedestrians, bicyclists, etc. on the 50-mile loop, signing, striping, make them more visible and orderly. Also get rid of, maybe possibly, or propose to get rid of some of the free right turns and things that aren't necessarily best for pedestrians. Our proposed improvements in the alignment, we've split it up into 9 different segments, and we went back and looked at each segment to, you know, make proposals for each segment. Also, during our inventory of the loop alignment, we looked at safety issues and existing conditions along the trails and intersections. The asphalt could be improved, and this would be a normal maintenance type thing where the cracks would need to be sealed, or you could go in and repave some of the trails. The intersections, we have all different types of intersections along the alignment, so we'd be looking at proposing some consistent treatments for those. There are a few segments through here that we'll go through a little bit and look at the alignment and a few of the proposals that we're proposing. This alignment here is the Paseo de las Montañas Embudo Arroyos that goes from Tramway Boulevard up to I-40. And most of this trail is already intact. There are just a few kind of issues with it where we would look at proposing some consistent treatments for the intersections. The trail does cross several city streets. And then at Pennsylvania, there's some issues there where the trail is on one side, but we would look at moving the trail with perhaps a prefabricated pedestrian bridge, getting it to the north side of the arroyo, and then at Pennsylvania, make that crossing a little bit better with the signal. The University Nob Hill near Heights area, this is one of the kind of urban sections where we would propose the urban trail, especially down Alvarado. We could restripe the street for the sharo and then propose a wider sidewalk for pedestrians and the type of users that don't want to be on the roadway. The Bridge Bosque downtown, this area, Bridge Boulevard, one of the gaps in this area, we'd look at proposing a trail on one side with on-street bicycle lanes. Our 50-mile loop committee, we've been working with them over the past few months, and representatives included cycling groups, walkers, runners, city staff, Bernalillo County, and the COG. We've had really great input from them and have appreciated all of their work. For more information, please contact the mayor's office at 505-768-3000 or email theplan@cabq.gov.
My name is Mimi Burns. I'm the project manager for the Rio Grande Vision. I'm with Decker Parrish Sabatini, and I'm a landscape architect, and I'm working with the city and city staff on this project. The objectives of the project are to make the river a bigger part of people's lives, provide better access to the Rio Grande, provide quality recreation opportunities for all, provide quality of life for all, and to facilitate environmental stewardship. These objectives were created before we started working on the project, and they still hold true today. There's been a lot of public outreach for this project. People care about the river, and even before this contract was in place, there had been public meetings about the Rio Grande, about the Rio Grande Valley State Park, and what the city and city members wanted to see along the river. For this project, we've created two committees, a steering committee comprised mostly of, well, a combination of public and private sector individuals representing a variety of organizations and institutions, including the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District Board, tour guides and paddlers who use the Rio Grande for their business and introduce people to the environment, the University of New Mexico, the City of Albuquerque staff, including folks who have been managing the Rio Grande Valley State Park, private citizens, members of the Open Space Advisory Board, the Albuquerque Convention and Visitors Bureau, and local businesses. We also have a technical advisory committee for this project, and that includes staff of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, representatives of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, AMAFCA, the Local Council of Governments, the Rio Grande Nature Center State Park, Bernalillo County, the Biopark, UNM, and then paddling instructors who are interested in recreation opportunities along the river. There have been 3 meetings for each of these committees, starting in fall and ending in December. Other outreach efforts have included interviews, primarily with subject matter experts, and there's been more than 20 of those. Public meetings, which there have been 4 of those, 2 in October, one on the east side at the Albuquerque Museum and one on the west side at the Open Space Visitor Center, and then 2 more public meetings in December. The east side meeting was held at the Rio Grande Nature Center, and the west side was held at the Open Space Visitor Center again. Additionally, on the Albuquerque The Plan website, there's been information about the project, as well as the opportunity for people to take a survey about what they'd like to see along the Rio Grande. And there's also an individual project website, www.riograndevision.com, where we've had documents throughout the course of the project. We've posted documents for public review. Our approach to this project has several points, and these were developed in concert with our stakeholder meetings, learning more about the river, and also the public meetings and outreach that were done. The improvements must connect and protect. We'd like to celebrate the transitions between the urban and wild areas. So the river corridor and the bosque, much of it will remain just as it is, with strategic improvements. And then this contrast between the urban pattern of the city and this wild area in its midst, we'd like to celebrate that with the corridor plan. We'd like to leverage existing infrastructure and investments. There have been quite a few made along the corridor, including the Albuquerque Biopark. We need to balance the scale and placement of improvements so residents at the north and in the south can also enjoy the Rio Grande, and on the east and the west, and then integrate the wild and natural areas into the mosaic of improvements. They're an integral part of the solution. We'd like to connect people with a variety of opportunities and activities and experiences along the corridor. Connect to a bigger vision. There's the Blue-Green Trail, which is the idea that along the Rio Grande corridor, we could connect New Mexico residents with Colorado and Texas, similar to the Appalachian Trail idea. And there's a blue trail, which is within the river corridor itself, and a green trail or a terrain trail along its side. We'd also like to connect to Rio Grande Valley State Park, which is an existing park, and people don't really recognize it, and it's one of the 25 largest urban parks in America. We need to connect also to the land and water managers. Right now, there are many independent projects going on along the Rio Grande, and to work collaboratively would be one of our goals. Protect. We'd like to protect the restoration efforts and showcase environmental and cultural processes along the river. Protect the public and natural qualities. There's no private development or heated structures within the levees that we're proposing here, and that's an important point. Also, protect the ecosystem through coordinated and best practices and operations. And excite. This corridor plan, the intent is to be bold and persistent in implementing improvements that connect and protect. It's a multi-decade vision. It will take time to implement, but we also like to be strategic. Incremental, high-quality improvements that can be maintained is an important aspect of the corridor plan. And be inclusive. Continue to engage the community in defining this vision. So, the corridor plan. It's a conceptual plan, that's important to note, for improvements along Rio Grande from Alameda to I-25 near the pueblo of Isleta. There's elements all along the corridor, and these elements are improvements in zones within the corridor that will connect, protect, and excite. They include the Blue-Green Trail, and also on-the-ground improvements like boardwalks and paths and trails and viewing platforms and restrooms and parking. And there's another level of element included here too, and that is zones for river and agriculture-related economic development. So here's the first section. We've divided into 5, and this is Alameda between La Orilla on the west side and Alameda to the north. There's several improvements included along here, but perhaps the biggest change or biggest improvement that would be noteworthy is a west side trail. One in the Bosque, which would be consolidating existing trails, and one eventually on top of the levee, which would be paved and allow people to make a loop along the Paseo del Bosque on the east side, cross near the Open Space Visitor Center at a new pedestrian crossing, and then loop back up north to Alameda. There's also art and interpretive trails and other improvements proposed in this area. The second section indicated here is the Montano section, which runs between Montano and I-40. This is where the Rio Grande Nature Center is, and also there's a trail on the west side south of Montano that we're proposing to use to introduce people to the river corridor. One of the major improvements here is a boardwalk extending from the existing trailhead south of Montano on the west side to the floodway or the river corridor so that people can get closer to the river. At Central, there's quite a few improvements indicated in the corridor plan, but that's because there have already been many investments made in this area, and we think that we can leverage them and start to bring visitors who are visiting the biopark out towards the river, so that this is a destination as well as the biopark. This includes improvements on the north of Central, where Mountain comes west to the river, perhaps a new park and a boardwalk and consolidated trails. A new pedestrian crossing south of Central Bridge in an old location that might get people closer to the river. There's also boardwalks and a west side trail along the levee south of Central to Bridge, giving people an easier path to travel on this side of the river. At the National Hispanic Cultural Center and south to Woodward, we have included 2 new zones. We think that the end of Woodward is an opportunity for sort of an agrarian development or farming, something to incentivize and educate people about agriculture in this area. And also, there are trails up at the National Hispanic Cultural Center and next to a city park where we could introduce people into the river corridor in a deliberate manner, and they could educate them about the river. The southernmost section runs from Rio Bravo all the way to past I-25, and the major improvement in this area is the extension and completion of the Paseo del Bosque within the city and county. Right now, we would be extending it from the South Diversion Channel all the way south to past I-25. This would be a major improvement and a huge completion of the Blue-Green Trail within the city and county. Also, by the Valle del Oro National Wildlife Refuge, we've included improvements to leverage some of the improvements that are being done by others in this area. This is only one of 6 urban wildlife refuges in the nation, and we think this would be an important area to bring people to the river. So, costs. This is a conceptual plan. We have developed some cost estimates for this work, but further design work is needed. There's also an implementation plan which will identify other funding opportunities, including partnerships and grants. Already the Corps of Engineers is making recreation improvements for their work within the corridor, and we know that there's other partnerships available that would help implement in a coordinated manner recreation and education and conservation improvements along the corridor. The improvements in the corridor plan are independent. They don't all need to happen, and implementation will occur in phases. Please remember, this is a conceptual plan. There is no private development being proposed inside the levees. There are no heated structures being proposed inside the levees. The only structures proposed inside the levees are boardwalks, viewing platforms, boat ramps, and pedestrian river crossings. And finally, this is a multi-decade plan. We know that this will be implemented in pieces. We hope to build momentum with the first projects, and certainly those projects will be developed with public input. Next steps, continue to solicit public input and continue to work with our partners and land and water managers to design and coordinate on improvements along the river corridor. For more information, please contact the Mayor's Office at 505-768-3000, or you can email the plan@cabq.gov.